I think I was going for mermaid hair, but what I ended up with was actually more Ursula sea witch hair. So we're just gonna roll with it today. Howdy, I'm Shannon, and this is the Wanderluster, where together we explore topics that will help spark your sense of wonder so you can live an adventure on your terms. Today is going to be more of a personal post, even though I talk about travel, wellness, and all this stuff. Something happened to me in May of 2017, which really uncategorically changed the path of my life. You're probably aware of what happened because if you saw the title of this video, I lost $52,660.57. Now, how did that happen? I'm sure why you are watching this video. Well, I was a first-time home buyer in May of 2017, a little over a year ago now, as of this recording, and I was buying my first home. I saved, I worked really, really hard for several years, and I put 20% down on my home. I have to say that if you've never heard of wire fraud, that's what happened to me. I was closing on my home. The details, the emails and details of my correspondence with my title company and my lending company and my real estate agent were compromised, and the information was swapped out, and I wired my money to the wrong place. Now, it seems like a dumb thing to do, right? But wire fraud is one of the fastest growing crimes. If you know of anyone that's buying a home, please warn them about this because it was freaking awful, and I don't want this to happen to anybody else. So I've been on the horn about it for the last year to try and help people, educate people, and also maybe hold the industry accountable, because this is an easy crime to prevent, but it is essentially the perfect crime for somebody to easily wipe out your life savings like it happened to me. So how did this happen? Let's backtrack to May of 2017. I was a first-time home buyer here in San Antonio, Texas, and I had worked my tush off. I saved for 20% down on a $250,000 home, which I'm just gonna spoil the video. We were able to save the home, but this is the home that I wanted to buy. It had a clawfoot tub, it had a fenced-in yard. It is part of maybe someday a historical district. The house was built in 1934, I believe, and had just been kind of fixed up to sell. So it had a lot of charm. It was big enough that if we ever want to have a family, I want to foster dogs and later, foster children. Like, it just felt like the home I could grow into, and I worked really, really hard to save those $52,000 to put down. So I found this house and knew in this hot market we had to put an offer in. But I will say that if you've ever purchased a home, you know how terribly stressful it is, and like, you have to make a decision so fast, and you have to put in the money, you have to get pre-approved, you have to get to closing, you have to do the inspection, and I feel like you don't really get a lot of time to just like raise your hand, ask questions. You don't really get a lot of one-on-one service. At least I felt that I didn't in my home buying experience. I felt like I was just one of another buyer. Like, I was just one of a sea of people that, the title company and the mortgage company and even my agent was just like, oh, she's just, buying only a $250,000 home. That's a butt ton of money. It's a ton of money. It was all the money I had. And I remember how this happened was I put the offer in on the house. It was accepted and we were going to close on the house. And I was getting my money ready to get a cashier's check. And I kind of asked, like, hey, can I bring a cashier's check to my close? The title company wasn't very responsive, if I'm being honest. And it doesn't really matter because I've seen this horrible scam that's happened to other people that have a more responsive title company than I had. But the very nature of closing on your home essentially means that, it's a rush to the finish line, and there is a lot of room for error. There's a lot of room for hacking, which is what happened to me. There is ample opportunity for this crime to happen because your title company and real estate agent is servicing 15 or 20 other clients that day. They make you feel important, but they're not really keeping their eye on the ball, which is really sad. Essentially, how it happened was I went to close on my home and I wanted to know if I could bring a check. The title company wasn't very responsive. They weren't really getting back to me because, of course, I'm just one client in a sea of clients that are also closing on their home in the same week. And I asked if I could bring a check. They were like, yeah, you could bring a check, but it'll hold up your clothes. It could hold up your clothes. And of course, you know, I really want this house, right? I've already paid the inspection. I put down my earnest money, you know, my lease is going up at my apartment. I need this house, right? I want this house. And I was like, anything I can do to make this seamless, I will do it. You know, and I found that they just weren't really responsive. So I ended up waiting for the information to figure out what the final number was going to be and who I needed to send the money to. They did not return any of my phone calls because I called and had questions about the closing process. I just needed to confirm the location and time of our closing appointment. I wanted to confirm how I could send the money and where I was sending it. I eventually did get an email that came in where they sent me the money, or sent me the information to send my money, but of course I wanted to talk to a human being, shocker, about the closing, and nobody got back to me. 3 o'clock came when they sent the wire information over, and it gave me like no time to get to the bank because wires have to be, I think they have to be sent by either 4 p.m. Eastern or 5 p.m. Eastern, which means here in Central Time in Texas, I only really had like an hour or so to get to the bank, which isn't a lot of time. Why I'm saying this is that this was the perfect scenario for a hacker to come in, watch the email, scrape the information from my closing because they hacked the title company, and overnight they knew exactly when I would be going to the bank before my 1 p.m. appointment and swap out the information. And that's exactly what happened. That morning, I'm now rushing to the bank so I can wire the money with at least 4 hours to clear. So I knew the bank was opening at like 8 or 9, 10, 11, 12, 1. I wanted to make sure this wire cleared. Of course, I did not want to hold up my clothes at all or be, the one sticking point in the scenario. I just wanted the darn house. I wanted a cashier's check, but nobody said that that was okay. It was pretty crummy service. Nobody really seemed to care. I got this weird email the morning it happened, and a morning I was going to close and I knew I had to run to the bank before work. And they basically said in the email, oh, sorry, we sent you the wrong information for down payments of over $10,000. We have a different bank account you need to wire it to. I had already looked at an encrypted email, which had the information in it. The email that was sent out with the different account information in it was a PDF file with identical letterhead. It was even scanned in with the same crookedness of it, and it just had a different account number on it. So I thought this was really weird, and I emailed my real estate agent about it and was like, hey, have you ever heard of this happening? Number one, this title company never got back to me with my questions yesterday. I emailed them, nothing. I called them, nothing. And now all of a sudden, right before, at a really early hour in the morning, they're telling me my information isn't right. This doesn't seem right to me. And my real estate agent texts me and she says, I'm really sorry for the hassle. Here I was raising my hand. This didn't seem right. This didn't seem okay. But of course, I'm rushing to the bank. And I just thought it was really bizarre that my real estate agent said it was okay. And so I was like, all right, I guess I have to do the wire. I need to get this done. Long story short, I end up using the wrong information. Hackers had compromised the title company many times. Later, after it was discovered, the title company's vice president actually called me and said that this had happened 30 times, up to 60 times in the past year in San Antonio, Texas alone. 60 times. And yet for whatever reason, they just didn't feel the need to inform me of this or tell me about this or anything. But long story short, their email had been compromised. Later, when I was working with an FBI agent, I was able to confirm that my email was not the one compromised. What these scammers do is they essentially watch your email, or whoever they're able to weasel their way in, and then they basically take the documents and swipe out the information. They scrape all the information from the email thread from the chain, and then they give you the wrong PDF. And then they swap out their email address. So it almost looks, if you're on your phone, which I was, it looks like the same email address, but when you click through, clearly it's a different email address. It's title company 5 instead of just title company at domain.com. They'll switch it out and it'll be to a Gmail or a Yahoo or something terrible. Once you realize it's happened to you, it's too late. It's bonkers. But essentially they scrape the information They swapped it out and then they sent it to me in a new chain. But the chain had the same title, it had the same information in it, it looked identical. And like I said before, the PDF that they sent me even had the same slightly crooked scanning in as the original did. So it was pretty slick, it was pretty well done, that if you didn't know what you were looking for, it was easy to fall for it. And you know, this is the thing that really makes me mad. Like, I was born in the age of Nigerian prince scandals, you know, the scams where it'd be like, oh, just send me some money, you know, $3,000 and I will send you a check. Like, dude, I've had the internet since I was like 13. I know how these things work. But what was terrible about it is that in the rush of closing, your real estate agent isn't really paying much attention to you because she's about to get her check. Your title company just sees you as another number in a sea of people. And you know, your mortgage lender's pretty much kind of not really super involved at that point. So basically, this is the perfect crime because nobody's informing people, and they're able to just so seamlessly do this because they know you're freaked out, you're super stressed, you're crunched for time. You know, usually you get your wire information the night before or even the same day, and they just know it's like a crime of opportunity, and it's happened to a ton of people. So long story short, I was getting ready to go to my my closing appointment, and I got a text message. My title company never once freaking called me. They were texting me to confirm the time and location. This is 2 hours before my appointment. So this is 11 a.m. before 1 p.m. my appointment. They text me and say, oh, we just wanted to confirm we'll see you at 1 and it's at this location. Have you wired the money yet? And I was like, yeah, I did wire the money first thing this morning. And they're like, we haven't received it. I'm like, you should have received it. That was the whole point of me going first thing in the morning. And they're like, oh my God, call your bank right now. Like, we've been hacked, we've had this problem. And I heard it from 2 different people at this title company that this has happened many times to them before, where their email was compromised and these hackers came in to swap out the information and take a down payment. Yeah. They both of them, I wish I had a recording of it, both the vice president of the title company and the gal I was working with, who was supposed to be there for my close, were bending over backwards apologizing that this happened, but I'm sorry, your apologies don't help. These assholes just ran off with my down payment, $52,660.57. That was all the money I had. Side note, they had the audacity to ask me if I still wanted to come to my appointment and close. And I was bawling hysterically at that point because I was like, that was all the money I had. Do you think I have $52,000 just sitting around to come to my appointment? I was like, like, you know, I don't have the money. Like, if I had had $100,000, I would have just put that down on the freaking house to start with. Like, the whole thing was just unprofessional and bonkers. And these hackers just know that title companies are, sorry, they're kind of sloppy. I'm just gonna call a spade here. And they just know that many title companies aren't sufficiently warning people about this type of crime. Now, I will say one caveat is that I did speak to a lawyer as this process was unfolding. I called both banks first thing, called them both, my bank and the other bank. The other bank was Bank of America. My bank is Chase. Bank of America couldn't do anything for me because I'm not a Bank of America customer, but I was like, take me to the fraud department and at least log it because we need to put a freeze on this wire. And I called my bank and did all that. I spoke to a lawyer about it, and he's like, they didn't warn you about this? And I was like, actually, they do kind of warn you about it. Where did this title company put their warning for me? It was inside the encrypted document, right? The original one that I did see that had the right information in it, in tiny print at the bottom of a PDF. That wire fraud is a problem. That's not sufficient warning. I told everyone, you know, when they were asking about it, I said, you know, there's a reason why when you buy cigarettes, the Surgeon General's warning is on the outside of the cigarette carton. What good is a warning if you've already smoked all the cigarettes and you go, oh man, here at the bottom of the cigarette carton is the Surgeon General's warning. By law, they have to disclose the risk when you buy cigarettes. But in many states, aside from California, they don't really have to disclose sufficiently that this is a problem or what to look out for. They don't have to tell you about it. Mine was at the very bottom in small print, like, beware, wire fraud is a problem. Only use information from an encrypted email. But if these fraudsters already scraped the information and swapped out the email, which they do, you're not gonna see that warning because you've already pulled the wrong document. It's like so dumb. Now I think the title company puts it in red letters at the bottom of their email signature, but I will tell you a year ago they did not do that. And unfortunately, because my story went on a whole bunch of sites, I was, getting on the horn about this. I've talked to about 8 people that this has happened to, who found my story and found my website and reached out because they were, of course, terrified. And they basically said, yeah, nobody warned me about it. It wasn't in the documents, it wasn't in the email. And what blows my mind about this is that it literally would take somebody 13 seconds to say, hey, by the way, you're about to close on your house. I, as your real estate agent or your title company, person running the numbers, just be aware that this is happening. A verbal warning or a special email like, please respond to this email and acknowledge you know the risk of wiring money. Because that little ounce of free 13 seconds of prevention would have saved myself and many other families from this heartache, yet they don't do it. And nothing has changed in a year because I still get calls from people who are going through this terrible, terrible thing. So what happened to me? My money sat in limbo for 3 weeks. I was on social media about it. I was eventually told by Bank of America that they were able to freeze my funds, but they can't really tell you because they're a large bank, and both Chase and Bank of America were trying to cover their tushies and not promise anything. But I did know my money was frozen, but it sat there for almost 3 weeks. Luckily, the seller of my home was willing to work with me and extend my closing period. They extended it 3 times by the grace of God. And I was able to wait and not lose the house, at least at that point. The banks went back and forth very slowly, I might add, and eventually didn't come to an agreement to release my money. One bank wanted a hold harmless letter from the other, and they wouldn't issue it, so my money sat there even though it was there, and they were able to save it from leaving the bank into the hands of the fraudsters, because once that money's out of the recipient bank, it's gone forever. Good luck, you're not gonna get it back, unfortunately, because this crime is the perfect crime. Wires move fast, and police officers and banks move super slow. So if that money leaves the bank, it's gone. They've already transferred it to like 3 other banks, and you're never gonna find it, unfortunately. But the banks just slowly went back, and finally I was working with the FBI, and they called the bank and they're like, you just need to release this money because it's part of an ongoing FBI investigation. And sure enough, thankfully, Bank of America released my $52,000. I got all of it back except for like $340. Why? Because wires are not insured. I don't know if you know this, if you've closed on a home. If somebody steals your credit card and they rack up expenses that were not yours, you are not on the hook for that money, right? You're like, dude, I didn't buy $600 in cigarettes at this gas station, and your bank will investigate and refund your money. If you wire money, it is not insured. That money, it's technically yours. It was your fault, technically, that it was wired to who it was wired to. The bank doesn't check the information like they should. A simple phone call would have prevented that, but Chase didn't unfortunately do that. And what was really sad about this is that not only did the guy who ran off with my money, whether he was a middleman or just affiliated or he didn't know what was going on, he was just a fall guy, he had to consent to giving me my money back. And luckily, the fact that there was an open FBI investigation on my money, the guy did consent to giving me the money back. At least that's what the banks told me happened. And the money was eventually, after a month, it was released. It was the hardest month of my life. I remember when it happened to me, I got physically ill. I was covered in hives from the stress, but I distinctly remember in that day that it was not the worst thing that ever happened to me. Losing all my money and losing the dream house and having all of this just stress and just feeling humiliated that this happened was not the worst thing that ever happened to me. That happened to me the day my grandma died, and I wasn't there because I was giving a eulogy for another friend, and I wasn't at her bedside. And really, losing $52,000 sucks. It really sucks. And I've talked to families that have lost a lot more money and didn't get it back. But at least for me, I just remember being very clear, my partner was there, and he was just like holding me, and I just remember like, at least I have my people, like at least I have that, and like, I don't know how we're gonna get out of this mess, but like nobody died, thank God. There are more crimes, breaking and entering and, getting held up by gunpoint where people do die and lose your money and your life. And I just remember thinking, like, if I made that money, I'm gonna have to work hard a second time and get it back, or just work to make it again. And you know, that's what happened. You know, it was a very hard 4 weeks of my life. It was very stressful, it was really traumatic, and it was really humiliating. But I just remember thinking, like, on the day it happened, that I was gonna be committed to not being a victim of this. Even though I was victimized, I wasn't gonna stay a victim, and that I was gonna work really damn hard to earn my money a second time, so I would eventually be a homeowner. And you know, if this happens to you, or if you know of anybody that is going through this or about to buy a home, tell them about wire fraud. Tell them to send a cashier's check. Don't trust anything you get via email. It's too easily compromised. This crime is just happening so often. And if you know you need more information, I did set up a website called realestatewirefraud.com. I'll have the link below. Anywho, that is my story of how I lost $52,660.57 to wire fraud when I was closing on my home. I knew that people wanted me to tell the story. My friends and family wanted me to get the word out there. Honestly, it was so traumatic. I just kind of wanted to hide about it, but it's been a year since this has happened, and I'm like ready to get back on the bullhorn about it, because this is really impacting families. You know, this almost took away my dream. You know, we've fostered 6 beautiful dogs, 2 of which were in the neighborhood that were abandoned. You know, we were able to get them adopted. We just adopted a wonderful rescued Boston Terrier we've added to our family. You know, we've also brought in Hurricane Harvey evacuees during that phase of like being able to have a home to offer to share people. Realize that, you know, a home isn't just a bunch of walls. It's a place where dreams happen. It's a place where our dreams are happening. And if I can help anybody else who may be buying a home and would lose it to something like this, and like wondering how this can even possibly keep happening, I just wanted to share this story. You know, losing all that money was terrible, and it was heart-wrenching, and it also changed my life, because now I saw something terrible in people. I'm mad at the real estate industry that isn't sufficiently warning people. I'm mad at fraudsters who take advantage of families that are closing on homes. But it gave me a renewed faith in the good of the world, the helpers, the people who care. My friends and family stepped up just so powerfully to be there for me when I just wanted to hide. I wanted to give up. I wanted to give up on the money and just assume it was gone. But they kept pushing me, you know, get on Twitter, get on Facebook, call the bank every single day, call twice a day, put pressure on them, you know, keep asking questions, you know, call the title company, hold them accountable, get to a lawyer. Like, they were like really on me to just keep on fighting to get it resolved. And I couldn't be more grateful. Some of them had even offered to set up a GoFundMe at one point, you know, to try and save the house. Luckily, it did not come to that, and I was able to recover the money. I have survivor's guilt about it. It's just bonkers, like, that this even happened and that it continues to happen to families. You know, and since then, I just realized that this pain that I went through, this humiliation, this struggle that I went through with this situation, I have a choice now. Number one, was tremendously lucky to get the money back and save this home that we've been able to share and open up to people we love and have new memories in it. But I want to stop this from happening to other people. But it also really illuminated like how strong you can be when something terrible happens, and like how strong love, sorry, I choke up, like how strong love is, that people were there for me in my darkest hour, and they were brave when I was scared. And so like now I'm on the bullhorn because, you know, I need to tell other people about this so it doesn't happen to them, but also like if it happens to you, you're gonna be okay. It doesn't feel like that right now, and it is terrible and it is sucky, and the industry needs to just be basically accountable, but like you're gonna be okay, and that just lean on the people you love, because it showed to me when I lost that money, like that was awful, but it also showed me how strong I was and how strong love is when people care about you. So with that, I'm gonna wrap up this really long personal vlog. I typically don't do long videos like this, but you know, people have asked me to share my story. I felt it was time to finally do so, because it's really, going through that just really changes how you see everything. In the future, I'm gonna be adding new videos every single week. Not all of them will be this dramatic, I assure you. Some of them are going to be about travel, about wellness, about my journey to health as I have an autoimmune disorder. And they're going to be about fun, more light and upbeat topics than wire fraud. But I hope you'll join me on this journey because I would love to have you here if you would like to have more spark, wonder, and adventure in your life. Anyway, guys, have a great rest of your day and thank you so much for watching. Bye.